Hi, so this deck of cards was compiled to facilitate working through MCAT-style standalone question dealing with solubility equilibria, specifically with common polyatomic ions. So brace yourself because there's several things in here that I recommend for you to memorize. What is the molecular formula for the nitrite anion? So what is the molecular formula for nitrite? That would be NO2 negative. The overall molecule has a charge of -1. And so we can see here it has a bent molecular geometry. Nitrogen has 2 lone pairs of oxygen, and it can form a resonance structure by rotating the double bond between each oxygen to distribute the overall charge. All right. What is the overall charge on the nitrate anion? So what's the charge for nitrate? That would be NO3 negative. So nitrate has an overall charge of -1. And notice that nitrate has 3 oxygens as opposed to 2. What is the molecular formula for the phosphite anion? So what's the molecular formula for phosphite? All right, so the molecular formula is PO3. Phosphite has 3 oxygens. The overall charge on the molecule is -3, or 3 negative. The phosphorus has a lone pair of electrons, it's unbonded, and 3 that are in single bonds with oxygen. So this has a trigonal pyramidal molecular geometry. And this is one of the things that I do recommend for you to memorize. All right, so memorize this. What is the overall charge on the phosphate anion? So what's the charge on phosphate? That would be 3 negative. And notice that phosphate has 4 oxygens. And this is something that you ought to memorize as well. What is the molecular formula for the sulfite anion? So what's the molecular formula for sulfite? That would be SO3, 2 negative. The overall polyatomic anion has a charge of 2 negative. And notice that sulfur has a lone pair of electrons, a double bond to oxygen, and 2 single bonds. And this can also be resonance stabilized. So memorize the charge, the structure, and the molecular formula, okay? What is the overall charge for the sulfate anion? So what's the overall charge for sulfate? All right, that would be 2 negative. So notice that sulfite and sulfate both have a charge of 2 negative, but sulfate has 4 oxygens. Okay, this is the polyatomic anion that's present in sulfuric acid. Memorize this. Okay, this is a big one. What is the formula for formal charge? So how do you calculate formal charge? All right, so formal charge is the group number. That's the column of the periodic table that the element of interest is in, minus 1/2 the number of electrons in covalent bonds. So let me show you what I mean by that. let's say you have carbon bonded to 4 things. I'm just going to make this methane. Methane is like always my go-to example for a lot of different concepts. All right, so here I see 4 covalent bonds, 1, 2, 3, and 4, but they all have 8 electrons. So 1/2 of that would be, 4. And this covalent is kind of a misnomer because you'd also do 1/2 this. So this would be like 10 bonds, so 1/2 of this would be 5. Although in actuality this is a pi bond situation, you look at it as long as there's a dash connecting two things, look at it as covalently bonded. Okay. And then finally, minus the number of electrons in lone pairs. You don't multiply that by 1/2, you just subtract that out. So definitely memorize this formula because it's going to help you lots. It'll help you lots in the chemistry section. What is the molecular formula for the chromate anion? What's the molecular formula for chromate? All right. The molecular formula for chromate is CrO4, and the overall polyatomic ion has a charge of 2 negative. So memorize this. Right, this one looks like a mouthful, but it's pretty straightforward. All oxyhalide ions, that's like stuff with like ClO4, BrO2, whatever, like halogen. No, I mean ClOH. Okay? So things with halogen. So the oxy part comes from this. Actually, I think it's just oxygen. I'm not. Google it. All right. So oxyhalide anions, perchlorate, chlorate, chlorite, and hypochlorite have a charge of negative what? What's the charge on oxyhalides and the chlorate series? That would be -1, and this is for something for you to memorize as well. Right, so memorize the charge on oxyhalides and perchlorate, chlorite, chlorate, hypochlorite, all that.